What is this? Oh, man.
And I was told that there was an upcoming debate at this union that Michael Sherman...
This room reeks of egalitarianism, doesn't it? It's almost
Oh, yeah.
palpable. It's like
but it's diverse.
It's diverse, egalitarian diversity just squished into a room. It's just smells like justice.
Smells of curry, judging by the woman in there.
Essentially, of God, or whether it was a delusion, and that they were in need of a replacement speaker. Now, I won't go as far, especially given the circumstances, to call this providence. However, it does leave you with a slight sense that there might have been more than chance at play in bringing me to this chamber tonight. But it is exactly that kind of thinking, the seeking of agency and design, where there is in fact none, that I've travelled here in an attempt to dispel. We've heard a lot about arguments, but as a psychological phenomenon, I wonder how relevant these really are to God belief. That is, when you hear somebody recounting a conversion story, how often does it really begin with premise one? You're more likely to hear a narrative or a story, some kind of account of an experience. Indeed, the most high-profile...
I don't know. Is he admitting, in a sense, that maybe our experience and the assumption that we're sane people and we are in fact here, and that we have a mind and something that can't be reduced to matter? I don't know. Is he assuming that might precede premise ones? Every premise one that's ever existed in all eternity, or in the creation of the world, there's a precondition for premises, right?
And we shall see later on how he doesn't use emotional or experience at all.
Right.
He is just pure reason.
Right.
Conversion, perhaps of this millennium, happened just a few weeks ago when the fifth horsewoman of New Atheism, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, announced in a long and celebrated essay that she had embraced Christianity.
Yeah, so this is the new thing in the blip in Christianity, or in atheism, that Hirsi, the female, I don't know, she was an atheist, activist or something like this.
No, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, she was more anti-Islam.
Right.
Because she underwent female genital mutilation back in Somalia, I believe. And moving to the Netherlands, right, and then became an atheist and became an activist against Islam and stuff. But yeah, let's let him, present the full case.
Our favorite is here, Iron. Hitch slap. No, he
is no one's favorite anything.
Yeah, no, he could probably make fun of my shoulders, as people do. He could probably do something about that, but no, his arguments were total shit. I actually would have exposed him if he was still alive and I could make it to a microphone to ask him a question. I could probably produce a contradiction.
His arguments absolute gobshite.
Actually, this guy did a whole video of how garbage Christopher Hitchens' views were and his arguments were.
Reviewer to notice something rather peculiar about this publication. That is, its somewhat conspicuous lack of arguments for the existence of God or for the truth of Christianity. Instead, she devoted the entire thing to talking about culture. She talked about the looming threats of Russia and China, of global Islamism, of wokeism. I think that an essay which mentions Osama bin Laden, Vladimir Putin, and indeed Professor Richard Dawkins exactly as many times as it mentions Jesus Christ might tell us that we're looking at a conversion that is at best insensitive to the truth claims of religious belief, and instead an attempt to escape, or a result, I should say, of a desire to escape certain unfortunate social realities.
Okay, I'm going to just stop it there. Now, why am I stopping it there? Well, it's been highlighted. It's not a new argument necessarily, but it's now new again, let's say, since the Dillahunty debacle. Everything he just said is actually an argument for Christianity under his own view. So the secular humanist, if they appeal to workability between nations and all of the things that they value, if you can come to those outcomes through the Christian view, it wouldn't matter the truth of it. Now, it would to me and Posh and anyone who calls themselves Christians. The truth of Christianity does matter. But from their view...
Your stream doesn't offer any value to the world. You're nothing. You're a stone on the shore, my guy.
Oh man, so wrong. Hits me every time. So from his view, it actually makes sense from the secular view to abandon truth in pursuit of the outcomes, right? Because under their view you can, and we actually demonstrated that last night in the panel. Even T-Jump, the abandonment of truth, if it did produce all the outcomes you wanted, then that's the only thing that would need to be mentioned for the secular humanist. You know what I mean? Is there anything you want to add to that? Because I think that's a really key point that these guys always miss, and they're often not cornered about it. I think that's the problem. They're really not cornered about this particular argument that's been raised again since the Dillahunty debacle.
Well, they sort of try to go through this perceived contrived martyrdom where they're like, yeah, I know it's difficult, but I'm biting the bullet, damn it,
Right.
But no, they workability, as the panel yesterday saw, it's difficult to accept it, but then they would have the entire a defense of like a metaphorical truth,
Right.
that one.
Yeah.
So
Weinstein take. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like a white lie.
Right.
But again, I wouldn't go via that route personally, because I know how they will hide from it,
Right.
and they will hide somewhere where you can't even reach it. The whole idea of metaphorical truth is like, it doesn't matter how many times you show statistics that religious people are happier, they have more children, etc., etc. To them, that's an indicator of effect, not necessarily the cause, identifying facts correctly, but instilling a certain pattern of behavior that produces these desirable outcomes.
Yeah.
But that I can't see anyone convincing anyone of that. Even when I debated Dillahunty, remember when I said, okay, you've got a brain, you've got a mind or whatever, and it's supposed to move, but there's no direction to move in. He says, well, if it increases your chances of survival.
Right,
and then I said, okay, but we know that religious people actually have live longer and stuff. It doesn't matter. You can't. I know they're just going to be, they're just hopping about.
Yeah, they're going to just dance around. It makes sense. I mean, maybe you can trap some people. You just have to get them to accept that first premise that, would you favor the outcomes valued by secular humanism if it meant abandoning certain truths? And then you just find what the threshold of truths or falsities in their view they'd accept. And I think it would be a person to person. This guy, I just don't think he's ever been challenged with that particular argument. That's why I'm drawn to it in this sense, because I know he would have to deal with it. So Logan, thank you, Logan. $10. Atheists think they're smart, but this new kid, Alex O'Connor, is no different than all the atheists before him. He's next in line to go around the racetrack. There's nothing new under the sun. I completely agree. I think he's going to exhaust it. He's actually almost reached it before in his career, where he was just like, what is the point of doing some of this stuff, right? What are we getting at here?
That is where God appeared in a dream to Joseph or to Zechariah. It seems that the president of Russia appeared in a nightmare to Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and also endowed her with a skill that I'm unable of, which is to adopt a belief simply because of its political or existential convenience. And again, perhaps my desire for my philosophical convictions to be, true is just too high a margin to demand. What I really want to ask.
My philosophical standards are just too much to ask. Watch as this falls apart. He says something, I don't know if it's yet. I'll tell you when he says it.
Whether this should be any kind of surprise, this approach, I mean. There is some recognition, even amongst the religious, that this is, at least in part, what religion does, what religion is. It provides some kind of unifying ethic to suppress the more depraved elements of our human nature. Evelyn Waugh was once asked how he reconciled his private hedonism and gluttony. He was accused of being rude and self-indulgent, how he reconciles this with his professed Christianity. He accepted the charge and simply said, can you imagine how much worse I would be if I wasn't a Catholic? Fair enough. I think
His jokes are landing.
that I'm fine.
Really bad. That's not even a good. It's not even a joke. It's actually another argument for pragmatism to adopt Christianity. And again, me and Posh don't recommend this argument. It's just that it's a consequence of his position. If all religions were some sort of mechanistic technological device of nature to keep us in check for things that we just don't prefer.
Not sure what's happening. Am I still going live? Because I thought it was on my end, but I see like the background image is moving.
Getting throttled a little bit here.
I am
Hopefully.
critiquing the one Irishman in Oxford.
Okay, I think we're back.
Okay.
I think we're back. Oh yeah, I was saying, would he rather, if it were the case that people utilize religion or for them to maintain their own impulses, would he rather they abandon it if it meant everybody running around? Now, I'm not saying that would just happen, but if it were the case that it did, people spoke about it in such a way that they said, well, no, my beliefs actually do guard me from my impulses. Thanks for the J harp there. So yeah, anyway, let's
Happy to help.
Suggests that religion is in essence nothing more than a mimetic entity that serves some kind of social purpose like this. That's what it's for, but isn't actually true. And I'm glad to hear that at least one member of the opposition.
Okay, why would, under his view, religion be this apparatus that does this pragmatic thing and it's useful creation? Why wouldn't that be true of truth itself from his view? That it was just a useful apparatus to assume things were true and false, so we can get along and sort of move our matter into its destined aging and decaying, right? Like they just, again, Posh, they go to the flea market, they pick up all the free metaphysical things and necessary things like logic and truth and knowledge and all this. And then they negate the things that they think, well, I don't really need that in the bag, right? And then we go, how did you get the things in the bag? And they go, I went to the flea market. It's a free flea market for all humans.
Position this evening seems to agree with me. I'm not sure if you'll see it that way too, ladies and gentlemen. But I won't say that I know this is the case. Of course, I can't do so. I will simply ask a question of you. What would you expect to see if God existed and all of this was being supervised? What would you expect the world to look like? How would you expect life to have evolved? And if we assume the alternative hypothesis, that is atheism, materialism, that is that the world we find ourselves in is just an amoral arena of accidentally existing organisms competing in an endless struggle for survival, what would we expect to find? And what do we find? A system of natural selection which explains the origin of species on planet.
No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? Do you want to yell at this guy or do you want me to?
I think he's a bit autistic, to be honest. If you yelled at him, he would just be, well, I don't understand why you. But I am upset by like these claims. The origin of species explains, natural selection explains the origin of species. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Explain the origin of life either, which is an even bigger thing. And then these massive developments, one huge one would be getting multicellular organisms. Mm-hmm. That's also a big thing. So it's not just like we talk about abiogenesis and then it's smooth sailing. You have a lot of problems, but he says it as in we know the mechanism, we may not know the finer details, but no, it's an unjustified claim, which is a necessary prerequisite for his worldview. So it's true, it's just a matter of time to discover it, and any critique is just pseudoscience.
Right.
With enough time.
Basically, what he said, it makes no sense. He said, well, what would we expect from a God, a created order, a created world from God? And then he said, well, and from an atheist view, everything happened, it's to some weird condition. It's basically luck and just chaos. What would we expect from that? Well, how could you say from the starting point that everything is accidental chaos, right? That it forms rationality, intelligibility, right? Workability, cohabitability, all of these things that need to be rational, that need to need regularity in nature, right? So how does he get regularity from this strict chaos? No, Alex, your view of the start of all things, not only does natural selection not account for the origin of species, your origin story, your origin myth of the creation of the universe and the planet and all these other things, the mechanism you're saying that created that is actually chaotic. It makes no sense. What we'd see from your view is that things weren't regular. Things were really, really wonky, like to the point where we would expect to not be able to expect to see things. Does that make sense? From his view, what we would expect is to not fully be able to know what to expect, because the irregularity would be the regularity in a sense. It's absurd.
Yeah, and it's this again. It's simultaneous chicken and egg, right? You've got laws dictating behavior, and you've got behavior creating laws, and it's both at the same time. So the cause and effect are simultaneous.
Right.
So none of it makes actual sense once you get down to it. But in a very low resolution, it's not even an analysis. It's like a glance at it. Is what's creating the confidence that they have. Because yesterday on my stream, I talked about how mechanistic thinking really precedes materialistic thinking. So the materialism is just the ultimate mechanistic thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And this is why they go with materialism is obvious, and anything else is sort of added to it.
Okay.
It's supernaturalism is added to it. But so our entire critique is that we are trying to show them how you can't just have material and have your position that you do. And what I'm so annoyed by is, as I said earlier about the simultaneous thing, about how they will go with metaphorical truth. They have certain, like in older video games, especially like checkpoints. They always get a checkpoint to return to, and it's like no progress is made.
Right. Yeah. Another thing to add to this is that from his view, what he would expect to see is that organisms he calls humans have effects called worldviews that are completely consistent with his assumption that everything we're doing and saying is just some effect of a previous mechanism in motion. Why would the naturalist be startled or confused about the variety of beliefs if he actually believes there's no real difference between any of them, including his own, because they're just effects of the mechanism he's referring to, right? That created all things. Maybe it's just they'd never been confronted with this. Maybe that's the case because to be fair, these guys operate in mostly classical foundationalism. Like they argue with theists and Christians who stay within the realm. Some of them even appeal to evolution and the capture and Christianities of the world. They never get confronted on these really fundamental things. They get to slip them in, and then the theist doesn't want to look stupid by outright rejecting evolution, right? This is the world this guy lives in. So in a way, it's only partially his fault.
That does not just cause or bring about, but relies upon suffering.
It's very quiet now.
Sorry, yeah.
The fittest is the same thing as the death and destruction of the unfit. 99% plus of all of the species, let alone animals, that have ever inhabited this planet have been brutally wiped from existence. And for what? For our development? It seems that unimaginable, indescribable, and seemingly inexplicable suffering is embedded into the very mechanism by which, I'm told, God decided to create human beings. I'm not saying this can't be explained on theism. Of course I can't say that. You could say that this is all part of some grand plan of Jobian proportion in its unintelligibility. Maybe there's some kind of compensation in the afterlife. Maybe dogs do go to heaven after all, sure. I'm just asking you what you would actually expect to be the case. I think that we wouldn't expect to see anything like what I've just described if we assume that there is a benevolent invigilator over...
This is nothing but an argument from personal incredulity fallacy.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing to it.
And by the way, when he says, what do you expect? He already has expectations that you are supposed to agree with. Like, if God is good, then we would all be just, eating chocolate all day or drinking beer, And that's what would happen, right? Because the only thing he appeals to is sense data, right? Or sensory input, right? So I like drinking beer. Therefore, if God is real and he's good and all powerful, I could be able to drink beer all the time, right? That's not how it works, because there's an entire network of ideas that feed into our expectations. One of them is the fallenness of man. Another one, which is, for example, why we would separate from the
world.
from the predeterministic, my guy, but the predeterministic, worldviews, like with Calvinism or Islam, is that this is how we define evil, is movement of the will away from God. So this is already different than just what you can categorize in some pure abstraction. And we temper our expectations with revelation as well. Right. We don't approach things completely abstractly. And I say we exclude predeterminists because they don't even need expectations, because whatever they expect is predetermined for them to expect. But when we have our belief in secondary causality, right, that you can have caused causes, that requires a certain metaphysical substratum, and that also feeds into our expectations. It also goes into humans actually have certain duties to nature, to one another, etc. So failure to be a secondary cause that is properly imaging God, properly aligning himself with God, is also going to have consequences. And it's not as simple as just I don't know. Abstract morality is just a joke, I mean, purely abstract morality, because you
like the field.
Yeah, like the field, but because you're going to temper everything to fit with your preconceptions.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting when you mention this, it always leads to duties, right? Like, so Alex here, let me just read this super chat. Rory Fares 999, thank you. I made friends with some Greek Orthodox folks back in 2005. I thought they were dumb Christians. The truth is they had asked more questions and found more answers than I. I was an arrogant atheist. Well, that's great to hear. And aside from Posh, his short stint of trying to be an atheist or whatever, I think more of us in the West can relate to sort of the rejection, the arrogance, the departure, and coming back. Oh, you said the same thing. I think you sent it twice. I appreciate that. Let me know if you want that back, if that was an accident, but I appreciate that. What was I saying? Oh, Posh, you said duties. Now, could he stand here, right, and make his arguments without assuming some duty toward the truth? That there's something drawing him to, well, we got to get to the truth, because the truth, there's some sort of duty I have to argue for what's true and negate what's not true. For what, right? Well, what under naturalism would you expect that? No. Why would you expect that under naturalism, that you'd have this metaphysical thing called the duty other than it's just an urge that's a natural physical urge that you're no different than having to pee or anything else. You're just
it
I am.
increases your chances of survival, perhaps.
Right. That's all he's doing. Right.
Yeah,
so
but then it's a presupposition to say truth is always going to increase your chances of survival, because I can immediately think of a couple of things that you might not want to find out the truth of what the government is doing.
Yeah, like all of Hillary Clinton's chefs, for instance. So yeah, he's doing it's almost a performative contradiction if he was pressed on it, that his very activity now wouldn't necessarily need to value truth. It would just be a reaction to stimuli based on his biology and his biochemistry that told him somehow, without him fully understanding it, that this is going to aid to his survival. Well, now we're back to pragmatism. It doesn't need to be true for survival. In fact, we just gave an example of how it would be the opposite, right? So valuing truth or gaining truth is not always compatible with survival.
Seeing the process. However, if we assume atheism, not only do we come to explain this phenomenon, but in my view, we also come to expect it. If I'm wrong, however, if the truth of theism...
And yet, from the naturalist view, there are people with varying paradigms of what they determine to be expected, right? As Posh just laid it out, what's expected from us? What's our standard for expectation, basically? The criteria for expectation varies. So under his own view, how could he leave out the plethora of different paradigms that inform our expectations? Why does he leave some out, right? Wouldn't they be all equally valid and useful in the evolutionary process? Of course they would have to be.
And he keeps smuggling in the idea that suffering is evil.
Right. Bad suffering.
This is the myth of neutrality. We can all agree, right? Well, no, we can't. And even if we did, we can agree for completely different reasons which are mutually exclusive. So just conclusion is insufficient.
Right. Atheists assume that if God existed, then the earth would be that's basically what it is. To be really reduced down, it would be like, what did I ask Adam Green once? He said, well, if God existed, why there's all this stuff? And I said, let's say God did exist and you weren't able to discern anything you didn't like. What would you have left to evaluate? You'd just be in this perpetual, like a Sam Harris, his view of like the logical consequence of Sam Harris's view that the ultimate well-being is the moral good. Well, what if well-being was just a bunch of us in helmets, eating, like WALL-E, that movie WALL-E, where we're just eating and having any experiences we want, and we're just basically, in a perpetual state of euphoria. That's the good?
Ask Adam Green, what if there is a God, but you couldn't ever discern size or tilt of the nose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that would be the most ruinous for him.
That would be the end of his entire charade. Yeah.
Theism is indeed as plain and graspable.
Prosh, thank you for putting that poetically so that my channel can stay up.
As many on the opposition would doubtless like to suggest this evening, then I must ask why religious belief has traditionally, if not essentially delusional in essence, relied so heavily on, if you like, non-rational modes of convincing. A sign as sure as they come of delusional belief is an inability to muster.
By the way, I'm sorry to keep stopping, but he's so full of shit. Under his own view, evolution produced 2/3 or more of the population at any given time in the history of mankind the delusion of believing in a deity. Now we've gotten to a place where we don't need that delusion. We need a new delusion. How do you argue for all of these things are necessary effects of evolution to, well, no, we ought to abandon this one. Well, no, that's just you experiencing your effect of evolution, right? They can't get out of this. That's why they can't get. Maybe they run from this, Posh. Maybe they never get on a panel where they're confronted with this problem. $10 from ABC123. Thank you so much. How can atheists have disdain in their voice for something they don't believe in? Yeah, that gets into spiritual matters, doesn't it? How can you hate something you don't believe in, like Matt Dillahunty? Yeah, I do ponder that sometimes. And I don't know. I mean, without doing some sort of like psychoanalysis, I think generally maybe Posh, you'd agree that any one of us at any given point could be in some rebellious state, and some of us stay there longer, and that's the most charitable generalization I can give.
Well, think about it. Anytime you sin, you're in like a smaller, like a microcosm of being in complete denial, because you're not going to be like, beating someone to death and thinking, well, God is so nice and good. You're going to pretend like he's not there for the time being, and then hopefully repent.
Yeah.
Or even more, hopefully stop beating a person to death.
Right. Or he's off doing, errands. God's off doing errands. He's got bigger problems. Yeah, he's got bigger problems. There's only so much in his Excel spreadsheet, basically.
And a resistance against rational defense of that belief, especially in the face of challenge. And most evident when the threat or enforcement, indeed, of suppression or physical violence is substituted in its place. That is the place of rational argument. And this hardly needs explication. Just 600 feet from the door of this chamber, there's an easily missable cross on the floor of Broad Street, which marks the spot where 3 bishops of the Church of England were burned at the stake. Not even for being the wrong religion, but so close, the wrong denomination, the wrong interpretation of the words. Doctrinal disputes like this have a long and violent history within the religious tradition.
Yeah, you don't want to put the long and violent history of just humans in general, right? You just have to develop a cause and cherry pick humanity doing X, Y, Z, but leave out everything. By the way, how could you appeal to evolution without largely, for the most part, some crazy percentage from their view would be pure force? What if they're just evolving, Alex? What if from their view, this is just how they evolved, right? To just.
And what about communism, by the way?
Right. No, yeah, don't mention that. You always laugh. Yeah, everyone can see. We're gonna actually have you play out the stream later with that.
Okay.
Logan, thanks for another super chat. Another major difference between atheism and Christianity is that atheism is completely man-centered. Christianity is God-centered. They do. Well, that's one of the inversions. So when someone said in the chat, which is largely true, that these people are defending their own degeneracy or sin, like Posh and I did a while back, a whole stream about how you act, and then in post hoc you develop some sort of Frankenstein monster worldview that justifies all your actions. In this case, it's not always the case of degeneracy in the sense that we think of it, which is mostly sexual today. With Alex, I would say from just surface level analysis that he wants reason to be basically the replacement, the God that man. Which makes this comment pretty precise here. It's like this attempt that you're the kind of God, you're the source of reason. Man's the source of all things, right? So therefore, if you start from the assumption man is the source of all these things, they say, well, man is clearly the creator of God and not the other way around. This is their common slogan. Yet, if you said, fine, well, I'm going to grant you that. I don't concede but how could he not be the creator of truth then? Let's say you just say truth can exist without God, right? If the atheist says man created God, why would we accept that man didn't create what you call truth? They'd say, well, no, truth is just like that which comports with reality. Well, are we creating that or are we discovering it? And so they're still stuck. Grant them all their nonsense. They're still stuck because they're making truth claims. Hence, the start of this stream is about the transcendental argument. How do they account for and justify truth being accessible, being argued, being discernible from their rational, naturalistic paradigm? Anything to add to that, Posh?
Yeah, because it's always always like that which comports to reality. Our perception of reality changes quite a bit. You know, even if we just take like this basic like scientific worldview, you know, and we'll pretend like not a lot of it is just made up, and you know, it's just a scheme to keep you know, money flowing into the to the funding for particular projects, etc. Which is a big case with abiogenesis. Doesn't produce anything, but you always need to say, oh, we're just on the cusp of creating the first cell, which they have been for like 20 years or something. But at the same time, like you said, truth, well, how do you know it's comporting? It is with experimentation. Well, a lot of people have done experimentation, then those experiments were superseded by other experiments, and then they say we're inching forward. That also doesn't really work. First of all, because again, every thought being a product of mechanism, your thoughts are just these products. And secondly, you never have any type of certainty, which is when they go to like, I have confidence in, that's a big Dillahunty thing, right? Saying, I have confidence. Yeah. And we see his ability to perceive, you know, objective reality with choice of partner.
He has, his level of confidence is pretty high that's not a... Yeah.
Well, I'll have you know, my wife beat me in a pissing competition.
Oh, God. And confidence, I don't need to put the toilet down.
That really ruined my confidence.
Okay. Oh, man, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like the whole description of truth, the whole truth which comports with reality. Okay, so, you know, we're back to sense data only. Well, no, we're back to preconditions. Are there any preconditions for you to comport something to what you call reality? Reality being this, by the way, an abstract descriptor of the material world, which is not identical to the concept, right? So we're already in metaphysics. How do you verify metaphysics with empiricism that requires assuming metaphysics before you do empiricism? It's the end of their road. I mean, they don't like it, but we shouldn't stop putting the stick in the spoke of the wheel on empiricism. It's a foul, incoherent position.
No, it's just rubbish. But it really appeals. People don't like uncertainty. People don't like chaos, and I don't mean other people. I mean all of us. And there's a certain comfort, which is why I hate people who say, "Oh, you're religious because it really makes it, you know,
easier."
Right? What was it like? You're in the back of a car, but you're confident that your father is driving, right, and things like that. Yeah. But at the same time, there's also a lot of comfort in knowing that nothing ever matters, nothing ever makes sense, so you can sort of do what you want.
Do whatever you want. Yeah, do as you will.
Yeah. And if they say, well, that doesn't mean I kill people, I didn't say you want to kill people. I said, if you want to, rather comforting as well. Of course, you can also believe in God, and God wants me to kill every heretic, right? I'm not saying that. This is ultimately something that to do with pride. Right. So we all suffer from these things. But I hate the idea that, oh, no, I'm just willing to accept the cold, cruel reality of nothing ever mattering. But at the same time, complaining if you kick a dog, that's the greatest form of evil. Or even...
You're really stuck on that one, Posh, aren't you? You really don't
openly
like...
so. I'll have it as a shirt. But you know, another thing is Christopher Hitchens, in fact, constantly talks about it's celestial North Korea. You can't even escape it in death. Right. So, but you can, and that's also comforting. That at a certain point, you know, you can end it all.
That's really interesting, because the atheist might point an argument from this emotional state that, you know, well, the theists, they're just seeking comfort. And from that point, I totally understand. I have compassion for the theists for seeking comfort, knowing that, you know, the thought of hope or of something after life. And we just turn around and say, well, then you're seeking the comfort of doing whatever you want here. Like our comfort's post and you're, posthumous, and yours is here. And so what is it? Do they cancel each other out? Do the emotional states of seeking comfort? The point is, it's not an argument because you can just turn it back on whatever condition someone seeks comfort in, and it's a silly. It has no bearing on the truth of the matter at all. In fact, if the naturalist was consistent, they would actually encourage people, because it's an elevated state of well-being, right?
Yeah,
to seek comfort. So they should actually be saying, be a theist, because it's better. Even Doug might even bite the bullet. I think I've even heard him say it before, where he'd just be like, yeah, no, I if you're getting comfort from that, why would I argue against that?
Can I tie it into something you talk about a lot, which is like standpoint epistemology? You know how a lot of race hustlers or like feminists and these gender theorists, how they say, well, men shouldn't talk about women's experiences. They don't know what it's like to be a woman. Okay, but that also means women don't know what it's like to be men. So women should have no input on that. No, because women have been oppressed. Well, okay. So oppressed people know more than non-oppressed people. How does that follow? I'm saying it's a non sequitur. I'm not saying it's necessarily false. It's a non sequitur in that sense, but it doesn't matter. It sort of feels nice to say it. Or how every time I listen to, I mentioned like Jimmy Dore, like he has this idea like black people know what's up because they've been oppressed. Like,
because they've been through it.
Have you heard the state of the African American community?
Have you seen Mike Tyson? I mean, would you make the same argument for Mike Tyson or James Brown? Like, what? You know what it is? It's this romantic sense that they've seen life, so they have access to what we would call like life smarts or wisdom. They've seen, and maybe it's true that maybe it's true in certain contexts. Maybe they know something that you couldn't identify, right? In a certain environment, maybe a gang sign or something like this.
Oh yeah.
Right.
My entire life has been like I was raised rather properly. You could not too long ago you could swindle me rather easily because I just don't expect it. It's not that I was naive, but I just always had this sense of propriety, and I said, well, okay, I would expect if this person is trying to sell me something to fund, I don't know, an orphanage or whatever.
D. Sims says, as an African-American man myself, I don't take too kindly to this. For those of you who need to know, D. Sims is the reddest person. He's the reddest person ever.
He's like one acoustic guitar away from singing about Northmen, rich men.
He is. He probably got a lot of attention.
That guy's only got a beard. Like D. Sims is full. Ginger.
Yeah, full ginger. I gotta do this because I'm really bad at it. Everybody hit the like button. We got about 300 to 400 people here. Take a second, close the chat, hit the thumb. It takes 2 seconds to do. It makes a huge difference. I'm just getting to the point where I'm breaking through the constraints of the algorithm. So you doing that will be a huge help to the channel. So go ahead and do that now. And we'll continue. Give you a second to do that. And we'll continue with Alex O'Connor's argument from personal incredulity. I want them to have better arguments. Like Andrew says, we need better enemies. I want better arguments.
Yeah, you want more Dougs.
Right.
Fewer
more Dougs.
T-jumps.
Yes. Right. All right. Let's continue with this.
It's worth asking why that's the case. Oh, you think that the sun...
Also, if there are atheists here today and you do want to jump on and tangle, it's probably a pretty good day to do it. We're only about an hour 42 in. So let me know in the chat. I'm not just going to put the link if there's nobody there. Then I don't want agreeers today. Okay, chat. I don't want agreeers. I want disagreeers today.
The Son proceeds from the Father alone, not the Father and the Holy Spirit. Oh, you're about to find out as you meet your Maker.
Back that I heard it the first time, he ruined Filioque.
Yeah, he's just basically saying this contention. Well, he's also, keep in mind, Posh, he just said people were unalived for their discrepancy,
Yeah.
and now he's trying to list the.
Wherever religious authority
Let me see.
and the Holy Spirit, you're about to the wrong interpretation of the words. Doctrinal disputes like this have a long and violent history within the religious tradition, and I think it's worth asking why that's the case. Oh, you think that the Son proceeds from the Father alone, not the Father and the Holy Spirit. You're about to find out as you meet your mate.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't say the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father alone,
yeah.
or the Father and the Son. He said the Son proceeds from the Father and the Holy Spirit.
Mm.
So it's spirituque. It's not filioque.
Spirituque. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there you go. He would be executed by everyone.
For both of them, he would come and say, "Oh, you really think this is a worthwhile difference to fight over?" And they go, "What?" And they unite.
Wherever religious authorities have had the political power to do so, I would say, and found the threat of otherworldly hellfire to have somewhat lost its efficacy on certain people, then they provide, shall we say, a corporeal simulacrum of this, bringing the flames into our own vale of tears, providing a very worldly inferno to ready the heretic for the inferno that's to come in Hades. Reducing heretics to literal ashes, in the full view of anybody else who might have the temerity to
Oh, do they have fancy? Do they have fancy high thread count tissues for you? Oh gosh!
Look at his pocket. He is rubbish. Just showing that he's an Irishman. He can't even make like the pocket decoration.
The pocket thing? Yeah. Well, that's just a piece of paper, I'm sure.
To question or to challenge the authority and compassion of the church. Why might a religious tradition, which I'm told is balanced upon reason and provability, evolve such a knee-jerk mortal resistance to freedom?
I can't say this enough, that the majority of human reality for this guy is not just carnage, but necessary carnage. So I mean, from his view, the majority of being human, and absent religion, Christianity, Catholicism, whatever he's arguing against, absent the recent, in his view, the recent iteration of this delusion that he's saying we should keep down, we should tamper down. Absent that, what is the majority of human existence from his view? And why? How come he's not arguing against those people, the ones thousands, in his view, millions of years before us, right? 200,000 years before us, who were just pure animalistic savagery, defense, protection, coercion, force, terrestrial gain. Notice how he never elevates them and be like, well, and then in his view, what actually, in his evolutionary view, got us out of that stage, right? It would end up being theism, which is, it's.
Yes, but there's also a couple of problems, like I mentioned with the Greeks, after the failure to conquer the Ptolemies. Seleucus to conquer the Ptolemies, or when any type of group would go after either Jews or Christians who would not participate in the worship of the gods. Mm-hmm. That's true. I agree with the highlighted comment. Mm-hmm. But also, for the majority of human existence, you did not have the luxury of a lot of tolerance, mm-hmm. Because things fractioned very quickly. Right. People took religion very seriously, and what tended to happen also is you get splits that end up in war. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is trying to suppress that type of event. Mm-hmm. I know it's easy to say, I'm not trying to justify just slaughtering heretics, mm-hmm. But we have to understand the mindset of the people at the time. We are now living in times of unprecedented luxury.
Right.
So we don't think of these things. Yeah. But if most of your life was living in a village, you're not going to take kindly to someone in the village behaving poorly or trying to usurp the order, mm-hmm. because that's your entire life. You are reliant on everything working as properly as it can, especially since people were also on edge after certain events like the Black Plague or after wars. People tend to be really on edge to the point that after World War II, we are still deciding who is good and who is bad by comparing it to World War II. That's such a level of trauma that I think was also sort of intentionally pushed, but it works because it's a traumatizing event. It's not like it was a bar fight and now someone's trying to push it today. No. It was like tens of millions of people perished, and that creates a certain worldview that attempts to avoid it in the future. It's exploited also for modern wars. Like everyone's Hitler. Oh, Saddam Hussein is Hitler. The Ayatollah is Hitler.
Everybody,
Everyone's either Hitler or Stalin, if you want to go with a different flavor.
Right.
But that's the way people used to think a lot more, because everything was so parochial. Everything was so much smaller. You can just blend into the great urban wasteland that are modern cities. And just continue, at your office job or whatever, and just have an existence. No, everything was so almost sacramental. What is our community defined by? Our religion. We congregate in the church. We have these views. We celebrate these feasts, and people weren't kind. Wouldn't take kindly to someone wanting to alter that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always ask these people, like, if they go back in history, they always go to the Amalekites, or all the crazy customs that were weekly, daily, monthly, yearly, right? Would Alex, just like Gnostic Neil, right? I asked him straight up. Let's say that was happening in your neighboring state or country. This is happening. Every Tuesday, the firstborn or whatever it is. Are you with me? Ought we stop it? Ought we do something? Ought we use force? And they inevitably say yes. I mean, what is Alex's position? He's going to reason. Well, no, we should bring them to the chambers, and we'll do a debate. On Alex's view here, if a bunch of secular humanists who all follow him declared that it was the best thing for the world, for humanity, to literally eliminate all religious people, it's horrific, but it's just a short-term thing. In the long term, how could they argue against it? I would really want to know the answer. How could they morally argue against it?
No. I would understand how they would argue against it, but it's the idea that it's so unprecedented. Like, you can't argue the other way, right? It's supposed to be this obviously avoidable thing, because I understand why you had people like Barry Goldwater who were against the United States getting involved in World War II. Like, you could make that argument. But nowadays, as I said, everyone is Hitler, so everything's shit.
Yeah. Bring them to the symposium, right?
Bring them to The Hague. Right. It's nonsense, because they sort of expect that if you apply their system, bad things don't happen. And like I talked about how when you get a movement going, whether it be like a revolutionary movement, whether it be just a political party that it's not necessarily radical or anything, but has its own flavor and starts to attract people. At the beginning, it's going to be the serious, sincere people, right? Have the convictions. But as you start to grow, that's when the grifters start coming in. Because why would they come in if it's just a nascent thing? It's not doing anything. But as you gain momentum, the grifters come in, the managerial class starts coming in, right? The drones. And that's how things develop. And then what usually happens, and this was very common in communist places, the grifters actually take out the actual ideologues, right? The serious, sincere people who are like, no, I'm doing this for the people, right? Well, the one who's just in it for the power and money and, whatever the grift is for, just sort of, oh no, he died valiantly fighting the fascists. They just happened to be behind him at the time. So that's how things happen even in the church, in a secular government. That's what would happen if his type of thinking became more pervasive. In fact, we see a lot of the progressivism becoming rather aggressive. Right? It's gaining so much momentum. It's trying to impose itself. And there was a Question Time. That's a BBC program. Have a panel, and it's foul. But you have Peter Hitchens there occasionally, so there's some type of regulation that you have to have sides presented. So they bring Peter Hitchens and like 5 neoliberals or progressives or whatever, hippies. So he's like there to be I hate everything.
By the way, Posh, I'm giving myself 3 months, and my goal is to have Peter Hitchens and yourself and a couple other people on Mixed Bag. I want to see if I can make that happen.
You need to. You need to make it more fancy. You call it the eclectic satchel.
Right, yes. yeah.
But yeah, that would be awesome. But as I said, there was, I think he's an actor, some just complete, bastard. Do you think, Peter, that they will be hunting conservatives in the bathrooms for being conservative? And, Peter says, well, I think there is a time coming where, sorry, I always need like a pen. There is a time coming where I believe that we will be persecuted for our beliefs. And, people laugh at him. And now when they compare like how many people in Russia are put in prison for social media posts versus the UK.
Right.
And it's like 300 to about 3,000.
Right.
And Russia has a larger population, so it's not even that type of discrepancy.
Right.
But you post something, I'm not sure about this transgender business, and whoops, there they go.
Yeah. Right. Something you mentioned before about rewriting history, and we mentioned standpoint theory, where the person who lived it gets to rewrite it. And I thought of the closest example of that, at least for human beings, at the family level, wouldn't it be, what is it called? Is it the eulogy, or the thing on the stone, right? The thing we write on the stone about the person, or even the thing that goes in the paper.
Epigraph.
Right? Yeah. This thing it's kind of like an example, and you never write all the foul stuff about the person. It's a revisionist. Not that you should. It's just funny that what is it called? The obituary. The obituary is basically standpoint theory for death in the family, in a sense. But now you expand that to entire cultures and histories of nations, wars, things that preceded war, and then how do you gain back the or at least closer to accurate representation of history? I don't even know how you would. I mean, first. You'd have to just stop going to all the public schools, right? Now, you're in Serbia, so you don't have this problem of leftism and all this nonsense getting
We had a lot bigger one not too long
you had a bigger
ago.
one, yeah. So you're in the start of the cycle. So you need like two generations maybe. Some blue hair, more technology, more entertainment, and then voila, right?
Yeah. As I said, we don't have your type of degeneracy, but we have the old-fashioned ones.
The kinds that virtue degeneracy.
Plump-breasted singers and things like that.
Okay.
All right. But at the same time, it's sort of, the oppression Olympics. I can't take care of my hair, but when then people say, why are all these people bragging about losing wars? I don't get it. Oh, you defeated us, so you owe us money. Like, no, sort of.
Yeah. I'll ask again in the chat. You got 300 and nearly 400 people here. Are there any atheists who would like to jump on and have a hang? We don't have to go full debate. We could, but Is there anyone? It's like B.S. Lewis was really loud when it was the panel when Daddy Pine Creek was on, but he's not here to save you, B.S. Where are you? Where are you?
You know, that's what I go to people who believe that the Son proceeds from the Father and the Spirit, and I say, "Hey, do you want to hang?" He says,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
Oh,
Whoops.
whoops. Sorry, I just.
Actually synonyms.
Would you like to hang? Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter, does it?
Right. Yeah, I don't see anybody in particular. My normal, dissenters are awfully quiet or out to lunch. Never go full debate. I like that, Liz. I like that. I'm gonna try to take that on. Always halfway debate, right? It's better for everyone, unless it's an actual debate. Then go full debate. But on the stream, on a panel, it's kind of fun to just try to do that balance. Always full debate. Emmanuel says. So anybody, nobody. Where are they? I don't want agreeers. I don't want agreements. Posh is here.
Too easy.
Yeah, who needs agreement right now? I'll go over to the Dono chat just in case see anything. All right. All caught up with super chats. Anything going on with you in the musical world? You got new instruments coming in, Posh. You get the J harp. Why don't you give us a J harp? See if it acts as like sort of a call to the atheists. If when they hear it, maybe they'll.
I'm afraid who might answer the summons.
Who knows who might show up?
Hello.
Are there any notes on that thing, or you just forget about scales or melody?
No. It's too simple to have such things to demonstrate.
Nice.
It's just this moving part.
Okay.
That's it. So your mouth acts like an acoustic. What do you call it? Chamber.
Just the chamber. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So and you just sort of do this. I can't remember the word for that action, but flick. That's a good one.
Yeah, you guys have flicking.
And then you change how much room there is by moving your tongue.
Like
no.
Oh,
the lips don't move. I'll show you. But, it's how much how close your tongue is to your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So of course you move it closer. There's less room, so it's a bit higher pitched, but nowhere near enough to be able to make a scale of it or something. So,
oi.
and I keep hitting my.
Very nice. Well, you have your consistency down. We'll see if any atheists show up.
I can't. It's difficult to hit this thing constantly because you see it has like this little bend.
You know what, Posh? I might beat you to the punch and add a J harp to the merch store. Maybe have something written on it that's an inside joke. Sounds like a didgeridoo. It really does. Or sounds like throat singing. It's like a cheat code for throat singing.
I never actually get to trying to learn throat singing. I always want to when I hear it, and then I forget.
Yeah.
I can simulate it, but I'm not doing it right. Saying, it's not. I'm not doing what's supposed to be done.
Yeah, there are actually. I did watch a full YouTube tutorial on polyphonic. I think it's called polyphonic singing.
Polyphonic singing.
And it's much more basic approach than throat singing, right? The Tanatuva approach is like, it's so dramatic and you're trying to do you could do it because you have a very low voice, but I actually tried the techniques and there was a moment where I produced a two-tone and I was just like, what the hell was that? It was almost frightening, actually. It was it felt wrong, but you can do it and you'll surprise yourself when that first sound comes out. it's pretty surprising that you can do that. But there's definitely a
what I've
technique to it.
realized with a lot of instruments, but especially it was the first time I actually figured out how you're supposed to play the piano with two hands, because my thinking was you practice with one hand and then you get that down so it becomes mechanical and then you only focus on the other. Turns out, no, that's not how you do it. It's the relationship between the movements. I'll have to use your filthy American terms, like a
Sure.
full note, like a whole note, sorry, and then a semi and then a quarter note. And it's when with pauses as well, but you hold this for this and this long, and then this one stays there for double that. And that's how you start thinking about it. And I remember, like with what you said, the first time I actually played something that I couldn't play for a year. And it took me like 2 hours with this new way of thinking about it to get it down. And it was shocking, I couldn't believe it was so easy, but it's about mindset. And with things like throat singing and stuff, you're basically using muscles you're not accustomed to using. So it's a new experience, and it ends up being easy once you get the mindset down.
Jacob says I can do it and make 3 harmonic mouths. Yeah, wow. I guess that's a limit, right? There has to be a limit physically, right?
I assume so. I can make only one.
Yeah. You should try it. I'll send you the video, Posh, of someone teaching it, and you'll be like, I don't want to listen to this person.
It's not a woman in black and white video, is it?
It is.
I think I saw it. I don't know if I watched it, but I remember.
Yeah. I think I may have sent that to you when I was doing this. I was like, well, Posh will be able maybe to do this.
I'm not sure. But I remember seeing that video.
Yeah,
I don't remember watching it, or at least I just watched for a while and then I had to do something else.
Yeah,
which tends to be the end of a lot of my endeavors.
You probably had the correct, sort of impulse where you look at that woman, and you're like, oh, this is the kind of lady that goes around naming trees and talking to like squirrels.
That's basically it.
So you were like, I don't like it. I don't know if there's going to be based polyphonic singers. I think they might all be gone. But
I don't know. There are things, can we make it based, or has it been mimetically so ruined by being associated with hippies?
Right.
But I also got like a ukulele, which is usually associated with that somewhere.
Yeah, the modern, that they all sing all
fat
weird.
Hawaiian guy.
Yeah, he started it all.
And then it's all very, very skinny women. That's basically the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I use it and sung like nationalist songs and stuff. So I try to,
take it back.
Yeah, take it back from the
take back
hippies.
the
They
youth,
don't believe in property, so
right.
You can take it.
That's true. Any other questions? Do you guys have any questions for Posh while he's here? I mean, we haven't done any rigorous theology, scripture in a long while. So if you had questions, now would be the time to ask him. Try to stump him biblically. It's fun game. Stump Posh biblically. I could even make a title for that for the next time. A little intro. Stump the redneck.
Stump. I want to show the mandolin.
Oh, nice. So staying in tune, okay?
It's very new, so you need to tune it like a couple of hours. But it's a hell to tune because it's so close together. But you can see a problem I have.
Oh yeah, wizard hands. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can play like a G. It works fine. I can play a C, which is just above that. But then you get an E, and it looks like this.
Yeah.
And you can see how disfigured my hand gets, and
Posh,
really working well.
Posh, I don't know if you have this where you are, but over here in the West, for people like you, they do have these rubber attachments that are other hands making chords for the mandolin, so you can
really
no. you imagine like a little hand on your finger? That's all. that's holding a G chord. And
You
you're
know,
just
I
like,
imagine like not they have, but like little like a rubber
yeah, the rubber hand things.
tension.
Yeah. Hmm.
That I can see working in very, very
Yeah.
limited circumstances. But
Mhm.
I love the sound of it, you know. And I've been trying to learn some songs. It's still too early because, you know.
Yeah. It's got a good tone.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
Good tone.
again, it's still a bit new, so it
What are
doesn't
you
really work.
in GDEA?
No, let me think about it. I need to visualize the keyboard again because everything is a keyboard to me. It ends in E, E5, uh,
CGEA?
G.
CGEA? It's probably CGEA.
There's no C in it. It's E, uh, G, D, A.
Oh,